Hey everyone, it's Gavilan Ord here, and welcome. This is my first attempt at some diorama work. First thing I want to do is just give a shout out to Budget Jedi. He is my inspiration for this kind of stuff. I've never attempted anything like this. I'm not a crafty kind of guy, but his creativity and ingenuity and ability to do stuff cheap has made me want to try stuff. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try to build a Tusken Raider hut. So the first thing I want to mention that this is nothing new or original. What I'm doing is I'm going to try to copy to the best of my ability the great Frank Diorio. He's a great diorama creator. His hut that he created at Celebrations 6. I did not go to Celebration 6. I did find a picture of his hut on the internet and the materials that he used to create it. So I am going to try to recreate what he did. I looked all over YouTube and the internet, and I've never been able to find a step-by-step video on how to create a Tusken Raider hut. I've seen end results, but never a step-by-step how-tos to. I thought maybe this would be great. So, of course, we have our Tusken Raider right here. He's going to offer us scale as we create our hut. And let me show you the materials that we're going to be using. So, the first thing that we need to be doing is we're going to do coat hangers. These are going to be the tent poles for our Tusken Raider hut. We're going to be needing some plaster bandages. So, of course, these are free. The wire hangers, we found them in my house. Scotch tape. The plaster bandages, however, can be more expensive. It depends on where you buy them. But I would say like $3 is probably good for a 15-foot roll by 4 inches. Depends again on where you get them. It's important to note that this can be used for more than one hut. So, you know, $3 isn't the actual investment in the hut. You can make many huts with this. We're going to need some spackling. This is a floral arrangement ring that I got at the dollar store for $1. And so it's a simple dollar. I'll show you why we're going to need this here in a little bit. Can of spray paint for about $3.50. That's some more plaster bandages, Elmer's glue, some markers and scissors. We're going to need a pot holder. I'll show you why. Just a pair of pliers to bend and cut the coat hangers with. We're going to need a tape measure as well. And we're also going to need a little wire here to do it. And then we're also going to need some shish kebab skewer sticks. And again, you could get these like at the dollar store or at Walmart, probably for under $1 or around $1 for a whole slew of them. So these are the materials that we're going to need. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up the hangers, and we're going to make our tent poles. And then we're going to break off the tips of these sticks, and we're going to attach them to the hangers in order to create our tent poles. So let me do that first. Okay, so I cut my coat hangers up into 6 tent poles, and I bent them using the pliers. And I also use the pot holder for is sometimes when you bend these are so thick that it really hurts your fingers when you bend these. So I'll hold on to them with the pot holder, and then I'll go ahead and bend them with the pliers, and that way I can create a nice uniform tent pole. So you want to get them all. I cut them about 7.5 inches long. That's what I did, and then I took the skewer tips and I broke off the skewer tips here. You can kind of see, and I taped them to the top of the coat hanger wires. And I tried to bend them all fairly simple or similar in curvature. So now we have our tent poles, and we are ready to begin the next step. So the trick here is that if I was to take take these and put them up and try to put them all together into a tent-like formation, they would all fall apart. There's no way to hold them. Even if I took some wire and wired them at the top, this is going to fall apart. So what we're going to need is we're going to need our floral holder. So what this is going to do is we're going to stick the tent poles into this right here, and you'll see that if we do that, it holds it. And we're going to stick them all across and make them all meet in the center, and we'll use a little wire to wrap around it so we can hold it. So what this is going to allow us to do is this is going to hold our tent in shape, so that way we can wrap the plaster bandages around it. So that's what this is for. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in place, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so here we are. I have the frame all built up. You can kind of see here that what I did is I put them all together and I used this wire to wire them all together. You can kind of see, so this is the frame outline. What I did is I stuck them here in the very edges of the circle to give us a nice uniform circumference, and I also made little marks on, you can't see them, it's very difficult, but right there I made little marks on each one with a marker. And what that does is that when I push them into the foam, I take them down and I look at the mark and make sure that all the marks are on the same distance from the mark to the foam on each one. Okay, this allows me to make sure that the base is even when it sits on the table. So you can take a look. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the best you can, spend a little bit of time. But I mean, again, it's not perfectly symmetrical. It's okay. You can kind of see that it's more flat here on the front than on the back. It's kind of more rounded on the back, but it's pretty good. So I think we'll go ahead and we're going to go with it. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to do the plaster bandages, and we're going to start draping the plaster around the frame. Okay, so I cut my bandage, and then here's my pan of water. I'm going to need a pan of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak this in the water. There's a textured side that's kind of bumpy, and then there's a flat side. Okay, so what we want to do is we want the textured side to be facing onto the wire, because this is where the plaster is, and we want it to really grab the wire. And then the side that doesn't have much of the plaster on it, we're going to have facing out. All right, so this gets really tricky with this length of plaster. It gets really hard to handle, so we'll see how we do. Good nod. Okay, so we're gonna put it into the water. Here we go. So you kind of soak it in like this. Make sure that the plaster again, the water soaked. You don't want to soak it very long. All right, then we're going to take it out, and again, you can see it starts to ball up. This is where it gets really, really hard to handle. So you want to smooth it, and you want to just kind of smooth it so that way the plaster covers all the bandages all the way down. Kind of bring out a little bit of the water. Again, you can see how it's beginning to ball up here on the side. So the first thing we have to do is we got to take it and we got to lay it out a little bit, so that way it begins. Yeah, there we go. And now this stuff dries pretty fast, so we want to be careful in making sure that we get this on there pretty good. All right, so then here we go. So we're going to take it, we're going to drape it around like so. All right, so we drape it over. Now you can kind of see it's a little messy. So the first thing we want to do is we want to taut it up just a little bit, and we want to stretch it just a little bit here. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect because this is just going to be the bottom layer. We're going to put a nice top layer on this eventually. All right, and then you want to pinch the railings here just a little bit. And the reason you want to do that is because you want it to really grasp the tent poles. And that looks pretty good. Again, this is kind of dippy right here, but that's alright. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So now we're going to go ahead and let this dry, and then we'll come back. Okay, so I came back. It's dried for a little bit. You can see that I removed the wire here, and while I wasn't recording, I put on another strip right here, and then one in the back. Let me turn it around and show you here. So I kind of covered up the top a little bit, but it's completely hardened now. This probably took about maybe 30 minutes, but I waited, I don't know, maybe 3 hours and came back. So now the advantage here is now we can remove this from the flower holder and actually see what it looks like alone. So let me do that. Okay, so I removed it from the thing. You can kind of see here, I mean, boy, that's really pretty close. I mean, they're all flush to the ground. And again, these marks were the key to making sure that those pegs were flush. So now that the plaster or the bandages have solidified, this whole thing holds its shape really, really nicely. So the next step here is to go ahead and we're going to put another layer right around the bottom here. and to complete the tent. And we'll also probably put at least 1 or 2 bandages right here on the back to complete it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, let it dry, and show you what that looks like. Okay, so here is the completed first layer. You can kind of see that everything's finished here. We have the back all finished up. And it looks pretty good. If Sand people or Tusken Raiders lived on Hoth, which they don't live on Hoth, so we do need to paint it a sand type color. I'm going to put one more layer on just the front. I'm going to go ahead and put it around just here to the edges on either side. Because the back doesn't require as much detail, you're not going to be looking at it in a diorama. If you are on yours, go ahead and you can wrap the whole thing again. I'm just trying to reduce or keep the weight of the plaster to a minimum. The reason I'm doing another layer, you can kind of see there's holes right here. So we want to kind of shore that up and make that look nice on the front. So I'll put another layer on, and then after that's dry, we're going to cut our front door, and we'll go from there. So here is the completed hut with the final layer. Again, you can kind of see I didn't put much on the back, but I did cover it up a little. You can kind of see that the layers are pretty well masked right here. On the front, I left a little bit of wrinkling here to try to give it kind of an authentic, rugged look. You could certainly make this taut right here if you wanted to. But that's what it looks like. And so the next step here is actually going to be, if you want to mask any of these little layers right here, that's where the spackling comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spackling and I'm going to rub a little bit right here to kind of mask this the definition between the two bandage layers. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm also going to go ahead and cut the door. So I went ahead and I cut a little paper cardboard piece here as the pattern to the door. It was too small, so then after I drew it, I went ahead and I kind of expanded it. But go ahead and make it out in pencil first. Make sure it looks nice and symmetrical. And then I'm going to go ahead and just take some scissors and I'm just going to cut it out. So after it's cut and after the spackling has dried here, I'll go ahead and we'll show it to you in a final form ready for painting. And here is the hut with the door cut. And you can see I put some spackling here just to kind of hide some of the lines. I did that on the sides too, just to try to hide some of the seams in the bandages. I should note that I did buy some big 8-inch bandages, and I could have gone all the way around with just one big 8-inch bandage to prevent any seams, but an 8-inch bandage would be really hard to handle, to manage. Maybe someone else much more talented than I could do it, but I felt it easier to do 4-inch bandages, so it's up to you. You can certainly experiment. So I did the door. One little tip on the door, once you cut these, this is another reason to use 2 layers, because it gives you more of a thicker look to use 2 layers. And what I did is I took my fingernail and I scraped the inside of all these in order to expose some of the thread in the bandages. It gives it kind of a hairy look, because remember, this is supposed to be made of bantha hide. So what we want to do is we want to, just kind of to scrape these with your fingernail. Do it very gently, as you want to break it, but to make it kind of thready and hairy around the threshold, to make it kind of give it an authentic look. So the next step here, I think we are ready to go ahead and commence painting. The next time you see this, it should be fully painted, except for the sticks up above, which we are going to use a black marker to color black. And why do we want to color that black? Well, because if we assume there's a fire inside, it's rising up and blackening the sticks with smoke and soot. So anyway, so I'll be back. Okay, so here is the hut painted. It doesn't look too shabby. The lighting kind of changes every time I video, so it's hard to say sometimes in terms of what it looks like. But you can kind of see that you can still see the perforations on the bandages, which I don't know, I think doesn't look too shabby. It kind of gives it a textured look. If we didn't like it, or if we wanted to change that, we could just take some plaster there and we could just paste everything, which I may try at some point. But what I don't like about it is just it seems like it's too monotone. So what I'm going to do is I had this in the house already. Again, I know I'm cheating because I had it. And I also had this, and I'm going to put some highlights on that, some brown highlights on the hut, and see if I can get it to look a little nicer. Especially I want to put some around the hut opening, and see if I can get that opening to kind of accent. So I'm going to try that and see what that looks like. So here's what the hut looks like fully painted with the highlights that I mentioned. So you can kind of see, it's hard to tell in the light, but you can see just the real light brown striations. It just gives it a kind of a nice multicolor look. Gives it, I don't know, like an aged look. You can kind of see how what I did with the door. I made that some highlights around the door to kind of give it a nice dark looking entrance. And then on the sticks up above, on the tent pole tips, I painted them brown using the same color brown, and then I just painted the tips black. Again, I don't know if that really looks good. Again, this is not movie accurate, right? I mean, the movie, it was much more domed. The tent poles did not stick out as much. You know, so yeah, I mean, it definitely is not exactly like the movie, but you know, we're trying to shoot for the best we can under a good budget. I should mention that I did dilute the brown a little bit to make these brown striations. So again, I just used this brush and I diluted the brown just real lightly. Just kind of went along and just did some of the highlights, try to highlight the tent poles a little bit. And again, there's lots of stuff you could do better with this. Anyway, it's pretty good. So I'll put it with some figures and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. Okay, so here is the Tusken Raider hut in some sort of context here with figures. You can kind of see I just really quickly and cheesily threw together some desert background and just taped it to a cardboard box. I had some sand. I thought I'd just throw it together again just to give you a feel for what it looks like in some sort of a diorama setting. So I'm going to take a look at it here and take a look at the diorama. You know, we got the guy holding the massive and the child in a very dangerous situation here. I think this is a very poorly supervised child. This is not going to end up well. This guy looks like he had a little bit too much to drink last night, and then this guy's on the bantha. These guys are handling the bantha. This guy's on the wrong end of the bantha. And so again, you can kind of see what it looks like. Again, there's lots of different stuff that you could do differently with this. Maybe you could texture it to make it look kind of hairy, and do some other stuff. But that's just kind of my first attempt. Let me pull back just a little bit so you can kind of see what it looks like all together. So my ultimate goal here is to create a really large 7-foot tall by 6-foot long bookshelf diorama display setup that displays several different scenes from the original trilogy series. I don't know how I'm going to make it because I'm not going to buy it. It's way too expensive. But I'm not a carpenter, but I can read directions on the internet. So let's see if I can make a bookshelf display, because really, I mean, that's what it's all about. Maybe some of you guys are out there and you've got a bunch of figures in a closet or in a box, and you're looking for interesting ways to display them as well. And so maybe, I'm going to try to document that as I go along, and it could be a year in the making. I don't know, but with the help of other great diorama makers out there, like Budget Jedi and Frank Diorio, and again, there's lots of really good ones out there. We can make it happen. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope this helps you make a Tusken Raider tent or hut of your very own. And with any luck, I'll be posting another video here sometime. So thanks a lot for watching, and have a great day.